Welcome to Break the Mould with Anwyn. I'm here today with Jen Ward, and she is a career coach, and she's also hosts a radio show on Main FM called Mind Your Head. Welcome. How are you?
Thanks.
How are
I'm
you?
I'm great. Great, thank you. Thanks for chatting with me. This is fun.
So tell me a bit about your show on the radio.
Well, Mind Your Head started in 2020 when we were in lockdown.
Ah, I didn't
And
know that.
yeah, my friend Ange, who is a counselor, suggested that we start the show, do it together, and interview people who either work the in a sort of mental health space or people who have lived experience stories or people, yeah, yeah, who just want to come on and share like you do.
Yes.
And so we co-hosted this show. I think we started in July 2020. So we're, yeah, 4 years on. Um, and after about 6 months, Ange decided, because she's a counsellor, sort of doing a radio show and seeing clients in mental health, it was too much. So she needed to self-care and make that decision for herself. And then I was like, oh, do I keep going? And I'm so glad that I did. And
Yeah.
it's a bit of work. It is volunteer based, but I love being part of the Main FM community and I love presenting. It's one of those activities where putting an interview together, like if I do it over Zoom or if I do it in the studio and doing the editing and then sharing it on air and choosing the songs, or if I have a live guest in the studio as well, or even just having no guests and running a show by myself is fun as well. And yeah, it's great. I get a lot of great feedback from people
Yes.
who I know I have regular listeners, but sometimes people just recognize me, which is really weird that they recognize me because I'm on radio. They can't, how do they know what I look like?
Yes, I think it's a really great radio station, I have to say. As they say, the best little station in the nation. When my mum died, I had an experience. It was on the Sunday, and then on the Monday, Hayley West has that show.
Dead air.
So she was on my mind, obviously, because it was the day after. And so she played on the radio Nick Cave's Into My Arms. And I was just bawling my eyes out. And I actually felt my mother's presence inside of me. Like she came into my heart and I felt this sort of love coming out of me. It was an incredible experience. And so I texted in and I made a request for her song, but I'll tell you a little bit about Nick Cave too. But yeah, so then I did that. And this experience just continued while then Hayley played that. And then I spoke to her later. I actually met her in person. And she said that that show was the only show she'd ever had where she asked people for requests. And so it just happened to be the day that that happened.
Mm.
And yeah, so my mum also knew Nick Cave's father because they were in Hamilton together. Yeah, so there
Mm.
was that connection as well. So, and then, yeah, and then Hayley and Melissa had a exhibition at Lot 19 about death. And so it all sort of came together. It was really interesting synchronicity and so beautiful. But yeah, like I feel like it's such a great community service, like all the shows on there.
Mm. We're very lucky.
Yes. But yeah, I have really enjoyed your show. And before meeting you, I would listen to it and I'd go, this is such good content, like it's so well put together. Yes. But yeah, it was very helpful in lockdown, that feeling that there was somebody there, kind of guiding you along.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, there wasn't much else to do, was there?
Yeah. Yes, this has been a big part of your life, hasn't it? Really, like talking about mental health.
I've always been fascinated with psychology, even though I haven't
Mm,
studied psychology and human behavior. It's so I
yes.
guess I've always, observed people, other people, other relationships, my relationships with my friendships. I've had friends come and go, throughout my life, which I think is maybe that's normal. Um, I'm still wondering for myself if I have ADHD or autism or a tiny bit of each, because of I don't know, because of the way I am in the world and what I've read and seen. And my son was diagnosed with ADHD
Mm,
about 3 years ago. And then when he was going through his diagnosis, my dad revealed, oh, yeah, that's how I am. I've always been like that. So
yeah, I was gonna say something about that. How did he know that?
I guess when I when we were going when my son was going through the diagnosis, they take a family approach, and so I was
Oh,
involved with the sessions, the counselling sessions that my son had, and I learnt a lot about it. So I would then type it all in an email to my family so that they could
oh,
understand what ADHD is all about and how the brain works, and it's really that connection between the emotional center and the um, frontal cortex. And yeah, so it's really the thinking and the emotions, so and how they relate. And when you're neurotypical, when it's all aligned and working well, life is easier. But you don't know that, because if you're neurodivergent, you don't know if your life is easier or harder than anyone else, because all you know is your own experience. And but I know that there's been some roadblocks for me throughout my life where I've started 4 degrees. I've always been clever. My report cards are always, oh, Jen will go to university. She's very clever. And I knew I was
mm,
clever, but I did have a learning difficulty, and that is uh, I'll learn something and then I'll just bored,
yeah.
and I just can't keep going. I don't have that urge to.
Completion. Yeah.
Yes, yes, I don't even complete all the food on my plate. It's true. There's all these metaphors in my life of not completing, and even relationships. I get to a point
Right.
and then
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah. Because of my ADHD, yeah, I've had that thing where completion is been a big thing, but also, yeah, that's part of that is being distracted, and also that with people with ADHD, it takes longer to do things.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, I don't
I
know.
can I
Yeah.
can do things quite, uh, I won't say fast, but I can, once I get my head in it, boom, 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 boom. But
Oh yeah.
it's the getting my head in it to
Yes.
start with. And it's
Yeah.
getting harder as I get older. And I think that's just hormonal changes as well that make you have a bit of a foggy brain, or your body's not as able and sprightly as it used to be, where you could just spring out of bed and go do that thing.
In my career, I have been like that. I've been really like super focused and as a chef, and just like bam, 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 get things done. And but yeah, I suppose I think it is like what you said. It's like just getting that focus, getting to that point, and then you can complete it. Mm.
Mm. And I'm going to bring it back to relationships, because they say with ADHD, it is very common to relationship jump.
Hmm.
And I have done that my whole life. In saying that, I've had 2 long-term relationships of 8 years each.
Yeah.
And, and I don't have any regrets about any of my relationships, maybe some of my behavior in how they ended. So I was watching a movie a couple of weeks ago about the women's rights activist Gloria Steinem.
Mm.
And in the movie, she was an attractive woman, and so I think, and she just was passionate about equal rights for women in America and beyond. And so every time she was interviewed on television, because she was the face of this movement,
Yeah.
often it was men who were interviewing her, and they would always ask, "Why aren't you married?" And
Mm.
she'd often have a great answer for it, and a real answer. But later on in life, there was an answer she gave was, "Well, I like to think that I've had a lot of marriages all through my life that have ended. So, in the relationships that I've had, there've been many marriages."
Yeah,
And it's true, it's just you just save all the costs of,
exactly.
the legality of getting married or having a wedding. But, and I think I love that, because that's the same with me. I have been married once, and that was to the father of my beautiful son. I don't know, we were friends. He has since remarried, and the friendship has sort of drifted apart, let's say,
Yeah.
and that's okay. Our son's an adult now, and we did a good job, and he's got his new life with his wife and children. So, yeah, and I'm in a fantastic relationship now, and feeling
Yeah.
very, very grounded and zen in where I'm at in life, and that includes my relationship.
My mother was bipolar, and I went out with a psychiatrist his mother was bipolar and his sister was schizophrenic. Obviously, that's why he got into the field. Yeah. So yeah, I spent a bit of time with her, which was interesting at times.
Mm,
She was a twin, and so it was pretty hard for her, really, because her twin was just perfect.
mm,
She was perfect in appearance and in, you know, very stable, and she had a family, and she was like the success story, and poor Mug was just this, you know, one that it didn't work. Her life hadn't worked for her. Yeah.
yeah, it's
So it's a
tricky
lot of
because
comparison.
oh, absolutely. I mean, that's just probably just a small part of it, the comparison, because when you have a mental illness, you are ill all the time, every day,
Yeah.
at different levels, depending how well you're supported through medication and the system and your
Yeah.
relationships. And um, it's kind of getting all those things in place in order to survive as best you can and live a nourishing life. And yeah, and I feel, my brother found his world and how he would be in the world through his relationships, and he married and had
Oh,
children.
okay.
mm. And yeah, so his wife was really, really supportive and loving, and they did end up breaking up. As the kids got older, the kids were sort of heading into teenage years, and I don't know, for a few different reasons they broke up. But Tom was always in Jane's life because he lived nearby, and he just loved those kids so much. And he even loved Jane, and in a friendship way, and so would be there, nearly every day, pick the kids up from school. And so having that family structure, even though they were living apart, really served him well. Um, in his place in the world and his identity in the world. And even though it was really troubling, all those other things, because he's got a mental illness, but he's also got a bit of an addiction to drugs. So he's finding
Ah,
those other, the dopamine hits, or those good feelings that he can find when he smokes pot or dabbles in other things. So, looking, because I guess the drugs for schizophrenia, or in Tom's experience, really dulled all his creativity. And that's a common story you hear.
yes.
And he was an artist, and he painted, and that was something that really gave him solace and joy, and just an outlet. And he's hundreds of artworks. I've got a couple on my wall, but and that was really good for him. But yeah, I think that he sort of turned to drugs a little bit as well throughout his life, and drinking
Yeah.
alcohol.
Yeah. So yeah, my boyfriend's sister, she used to smoke dope too. And it would just like exacerbate the drugs, the schizophrenic drugs. And so she actually would, get a bit violent.
you could put Tom there. You know, Tom's had there's been violence when he's mixed drugs with his medication or gone off his medication, which is common as well, and things spiral downwards. It's usually violence and police intervention, and sometimes readmission to the psych ward to restabilize him. And that was a sort of a pattern throughout his life, that we all sort of watched or were part of or supported as well, you know, because, you know, visiting him in the psych ward to show support and just, you know, sisterly love. But it was still really hard, and I know it was really hard for him.
Yeah. So he would have been diagnosed at 17 or something. Is that
I think he was
usually what happens?
Yeah. He was 18 or 19 or 20, around there. Yeah, that just,
And so
you know.
he married after that diagnosis?
Yeah, he probably married in his late 20s, but he met he was in the psych ward and he met a guy who became his friend, and his friend was partnered with Jane and they had a baby
Oh.
together. Yeah, so they
Oh,
were
wow.
just all friends.
Yeah.
And then in time that relationship fell apart, and of course, and then Tom stepped in and created more babies, and and they got married, and it was just, yeah, it was great because, you know, I have I have three biological nieces and
Yeah.
I don't know, other children from a relationship that Jane had a lot of babies, 6 or 7 babies. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Other people to have that understanding of what the experience is, you know, of dealing with mental illness. It's you know, it is challenging, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've suffered myself. I thought when you mentioned before about the twin sister of your friend who was the perfect sister, I always felt like I was the perfect sister. So I grew up with 2 brothers, and they were both, and they have both passed away. Richard was my older brother, and he was 26 and he had a brain hemorrhage.
Oh, wow.
And so it was sudden and it was a shock, and we were we were quite close. So he died in 1994. And knowing, I guess, growing up with him, watching how he was in school, and he had some learning difficulties or was always getting into trouble, and all the things that, when I look back, that he presented with, he was neurodivergent, you know, he autistic or ADHD or both. I knew there was something. We knew there was something. Mum would actually try to get him assessed. Autism wasn't sort of a thing until after 1991. So there were struggles there. Tom had his struggles, my younger brother, and then later diagnosed with schizophrenia. And then here I was sailing through, getting good marks at school, sort of keeping it all together, living a normal life.
Yeah.
And so my parents kind of put all their energy into Tom and Richard. I mean, that's not fair. Yeah, do you know what I mean? They're like, oh, Jen's okay.
Yeah. And so you became a little bit self-sufficient, would you say?
I guess in a way.
Or you felt neglected too? A bit sad about it.
I don't think I even realized it until later in life that was a dynamic, because I just thought, I felt like I was sort of part of the team of Mum and Dad looking out for Tom and Richard. And that's, yeah, just even saying that now, I don't even think I've ever said that out loud. It's like,
right.
I don't know, a family unit, I think, is a team where, you know, and I don't mean us against the world or anything, but we know each other the best because we live together, we grow up together, we have shared genetics and all of that, and stories. And it's like, gosh, no one knows our story as well as Mum, Dad, and myself. No one. And so, and I think I turn that into a positive. That's, you know, even though the story over time is a bit, you know, when people hear, you know, I have 2 brothers who died, or, oh, your poor mum and dad having 2 children die, it's just not right. It's so sad. And, but I guess, you know, there's acceptance around it as well, and go through the grief and the acceptance, and sort of make meaning from what has happened with
Yeah.
their death, each of their deaths,
Yes.
because they're very different. But when it comes to my own mental illness, I had a time, let's say, where I was quite unwell a year and a half ago, because 6 years ago or 7 years ago, I was having trouble sleeping, having panic attacks and anxiety. And when I went to the doctor, I was 46, and I went on antidepressants and SSRI. And that sort of softened everything off. And I felt, oh, this is all right. This is a easier way to get through my, navigate my life. But I think a common thing with uh, medication, and when I'm feeling all right, I'll just stop taking the medication.
Yeah.
and and then when I looked into it, no, that's quite an impossible task. So um, through a lot of research and doctor support and other support, I made the decision to go off my medication, which I did 2 years ago. And,
Okay.
and I thought it went well, but it didn't go well in the end. And I needed to go back on the medication. So I had quite, I was quite emotional. I was crying a lot. My relationships, my friendships were suffering. Work was, I don't know, I thought work was okay, but it turns out that was sort of suffering as well. I just didn't realize I was the last one to know.
Yeah,
Weird.
right.
So I went back onto the medication, and then when I went back on it didn't agree with me, and I was in,
Ah.
yeah, even though it was the same medication, and I was
Yes.
thrown into, my nervous system dysregulated, and I was having panic attacks for every
Oh
day. I was
no.
I was vomiting.
Oh wow.
I
That's a
lost.
strong reaction. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So if there's any message here, it's just be really, really careful with antidepressants and with coming off or going on them, and make sure that you're supported. And it was the mental health system that really helped me through that. And
Okay.
yeah, and
So
that's probably,
your doctors?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, my doctor, I would see my doctor every fortnight here locally, and I could ring her anytime. And I did ring her a lot. I rang Lifeline a lot. And in
Was
the
that
end,
helpful for you? Lifeline?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. I One particular time I woke up at 5 a.m. and because mornings were always worse. It's like I'd go like throughout the day as the medication sort of was working, I would start to feel better and it'd be great by the end of the day. I'm like, oh, this is it. It's working onwards. And then it was
Yeah.
like Groundhog Day. You wake up in the morning and you feel like you're back to where you were, and you're back. So on waking, my heart would race. Um, I would feel nauseous. I would need to vomit or dry reach. Yeah, and just my thoughts would be going, 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 and I'd just be in such a fearful place. And I thought and it was 5 in the morning one morning. I'm like, oh gosh, it's hours before daylight, or people, anyone who can help me. I thought, well, maybe Lifeline can help me. So I rang, and I was on the phone with a woman for 40 minutes, and we just talked, and
That's
it
so
really,
amazing.
yeah, it just sort of helped me regulate, yeah, my nervous system.
Yeah, fantastic.
Mm,
Wow. Yeah, they are good support, aren't they?
they are fantastic, and I like to think, yeah, they're not just for if you're feeling suicidal.
Yeah,
It's for
yeah.
anything that where
Yes.
you need help.
Mm, mm.
I was
Wow, what a
also,
great resource.
yes, it was the medication and how it was affecting my brain
Yeah.
and body. It
And
was,
nervous system, yeah.
yeah, it wasn't, oh, Jen, you have trauma. I've had people gaslight me around this because they don't know.
Yeah, well, you know yourself, don't you?
I'm well now.
Yeah, oh, fantastic. Yeah, that's brilliant. And have you found something that you feel good about? Some kind of treatment?
Well, I continued with the medication because it has worked in the
Oh,
past.
okay.
Yeah.
So you pushed through the same one?
Yeah, I pushed through.
Well,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
most people would give up. They go, this is not for me.
Oh, do you know, in hindsight, after a week on the medication when it was going a bit pear-shaped, my boyfriend said, "You can stop." And I said, "No, it's too late." If I was still in pain, it wouldn't have mattered because there was going to be pain either way. But you don't have a
Yeah.
crystal ball. I had all
No.
this hope that, oh, no, tomorrow it'll be better. Tomorrow will be better. And it just took a long time, a lot longer than I wanted it to take. And it was really hard.
Yeah.
But I'm going to fast forward to now and
Yes.
or over that time and how I managed. I one of the things I drew out on an A3 piece of paper with coloured pencils,
Mm.
a visual calendar, and I would write with the different pencils what I was doing each day. And I wasn't doing much, but I needed to do something every day because I wasn't working because I needed to get better. I pretended I was on a health retreat. I'd do Qigong every morning at 10 o'clock
Oh,
online.
yeah.
Um,
Cool.
I I had a friend of my dad and mum and mine, a guy in his a guy. Hi Nick, if you, come out and do my gardening every Thursday morning, and it was so wonderful. The message is there. One, Nick's company. Two, his helping. So the sense of I'm being helped. Three,
Supported. Yeah.
yeah, supported. Yeah, and then seeing uh, you know. Uh, my garden
Bro.
transform. Yeah,
Yeah.
and by branches being chopped down and the whippersnipping and the just really tidying
And
up and
that's
take.
like a metaphor for you for so chopping the branches down that you don't need anymore, the rotten ones, get rid of those, and then something else is new is growing up inside of you. Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
that's so good. Wow.
yeah, yeah. And that just continued, and I knew that when I started to stabilize, my next goal was to start work again. And I'm a career coach, so I started coaching people again, but only maybe one person a week. And then I was offered a role to do some bookkeeping with a friend who has a bookkeeping business. And that was fantastic. It was only about 6 hours a week, and I could do it from home. So it was really safe, and it was using my brain, and it was taking my focus away from the other stuff, um,
Mm.
and giving me routine and giving me money and a sense of worth. And then it just, I kept rebuilding
Yeah.
myself in this new way. And it's I feel so fantastic, and that's like 18 months later. I'm just so pleased with where I'm at now.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when at the beginning of that journey, do you think it was influenced by your brother's health? Your brothers? Yeah.
Mm, I think, do you mean when I first went on the medication?
Well, or even just, like your struggles. Like, so when you're, uh, well, it was a long time ago that your brother would have been diagnosed with schizophrenia.
Hmm.
And then also, so what year did your other brother die,
Okay,
of the brain hemorrhage?
okay. So Richard died in 1994,
Oh,
and
yeah, so that was a while ago.
yeah, and so I was only 23.
Yeah.
So, and I'd just come out of an abusive relationship, which is really,
Ah.
yeah, and I wouldn't even have named it that back then. But
Mm.
well, when you're hit, that's abusive.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Mm.
Luckily, I don't know. Anyway, it was
You
only
found your way
I,
out.
I got out
Yeah,
pretty
that's
well,
good.
pretty quickly. I don't know. I was with him for 2 years, but he hit me once and threatened me another time. But it was a lot more of a verbally abusive
Yes.
relationship. And yeah, and I think every relationship I've had has been pretty good after that. So luckily, mostly. Um, okay, so no, I think my struggles aren't really to do with my brothers or such. Maybe because Tom died nearly 6 years ago,
Okay.
um, of a drug overdose, and I don't know if it was a suicide. So,
Okay.
uh, yeah. Um, but I think his death probably brought up a lot of stuff subconsciously that led me to, I think my life has been a bit of a mess since he died in terms of the actions that I've taken in that time, even though I've had lots of great things happen as well, but I've also made some not great decisions, yeah, in how I've managed relationships. So I've reeled that in now.
Mm. So when
Mhm.
you say not great decisions, do you, what is it that makes you say that?
Well, I think that I've been a bit lost. I think the word lost comes in, and so, I find it easy to pick up. I can get into a relationship quite easily, and I love all the
Yeah.
rush of the hormones, endorphins and dopamine at the start of a relationship, and it's, being wooed or being taken out to dinner and the romance, but because it feels so great in the body. But I think that our thinking mind knows as well that, I guess, to be on alert that it might, yeah, this is the start of a relationship. Let's just see who this person is. It might not be the right one for you. But I know that now, but when I've been in them, I've been dragged along with um the highs of the newness of the relationship. And then when the dust starts to settle, I realize, oh no, this isn't so great. And then I either go into a little bit of drift along, let's just drift along,
Yep.
and then overanalyze it every day. Should I, shouldn't I, should I leave, should I not leave, should I? And then it gets to a point of, I mean, I know it takes two to tango, but I've had a relationship where it was really hard to leave, because when I left, I would get with the text bombing and the begging and then calling me names for
Mm.
making the decision that this isn't for me. And then I've made decisions where I've left.
Well, I think they're all lessons to learn. And
Yeah,
as we grow older, we discover what it is we really want in a relationship. And I think that takes time, and you can't hurry it up. And so we get to know ourselves more and more as we go older, I think too. Yeah.
definitely.
And
Yeah,
you sit with yourself, don't you?
absolutely. Absolutely. I was actually listening to your podcast with Samantha Wittenberg.
Oh yes.
Uh, and so I was like, oh yeah, what she said, because she nailed it. But what I will say, I'm in a relationship with Craig, and we've been together 3.5 years. And in a way, I wouldn't say we had the whole highs and the romance, the wooing. I think we've kept it real right from the get-go, and
Yeah.
it's been hard because you're getting to know a new person, but you really like them, so there's a bodily reaction, and there's also an intellectual bit of intellectual, like, I like you for these reasons, but why aren't I getting that big zing 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 that I might have got with other people? And it's okay that you don't get the zing zing, and you're getting to know them. So it's like, I think it's nice. It's been a slower process with Craig in getting to know each other, and we've had our hard times and just getting used to each other's style of personality. But I know that, and I know because you talk about this as well, when you come back to your values,
Yes.
it makes it easier. It really reminds it. I come back to my values to remind me why I'm in this relationship, and I'll share them with you. So, kindness to self, kindness to humanity. That
Yes.
sense of justice, and we like nature and outdoors. We like
Beautiful.
being busy, like fixing things or making things
Mm.
in our own way. We like I like taking in information, and so does he. Like learning. But I think one of the things that we have trouble over. Sometimes we're not the best at communicating, like sharing information around those topics. It's like, oh, I don't know if I want to sit down with you and talk about American politics. I can listen, but I don't.
Yeah.
It's not a fun discussion. I'm happy to learn about it and absorb it, but I don't really want to
Yeah.
have a rich discussion about it because it's not really my passion, whereas it might be his.
Right.
Yeah, so there's some differences there that I think we just
Yeah.
need
And I
to
think we
accept that
need,
it's okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
we need to have our own little, sideline things too, to
yeah,
keep, to like have time out away from our partner and do our own thing. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Like my partner and I, we actually, we worked together and we would just cook one beside each other. And so we talked and we got to know each other for 6 months before we even got together. And so we were friends before we were lovers. And I think that's kind of what's kept us going, because like if you have that facade of, oh, you just fall in love with somebody, love at first sight, then you're like what they say, you're falling in love with your persona, like like your projection of what you wanted in a relationship. And then it's got to fall away eventually. And then you see the real person. So yeah. Yeah. So
definitely.
I get that.
I feel too, and I've said this on my radio show quite a few times, that movies have a lot to answer for in terms of love and romance and relationships and raising our expectations or this picture of what relationships should be about,
Yes.
because,
Yeah.
it influences you, in the 80s. I mean, if I look back at movies that I watched in the 80s, I can't watch them because I can now see, how they're acted and directed and how damaging it is, that how women, place so much importance on being swept off our feet or being, and what we do, bend over backwards to please the man so that they love us. It's such a terrible message.
Yeah, it feels like that's that chase, isn't it, in movies a lot. It's like enticing them in or something. It's our job to do that. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm. So in your relationship, what are some of those positive things that make you think make it work really well
Yeah.
now? Like as
Yeah. I think that I think because we obviously we really like each other, and it's kind of an easy we we find it easy to be around each other. And uh, when other people or friends hold up a mirror and to us. So one friend said to me a couple of years ago, or about a year ago, what I love about you and Craig is that you can be at each other's house but do your own thing around each other. And I think it was because I was talking about how when I'm at Craig's, I bring my knitting or I bring my guitar, or I'll bring both. And so I'll either knit by the fire or I'll practice my guitar while he's maybe in the workshop fixing a amplifier, or he's chopping wood, or he's fixing something in his house. And we're just doing our own thing. And then we're sort of throughout the day, we might take a break. He might say, would you like a cup of tea? And he'd make me a cup of tea. And I'll feel this warm, fuzzy feeling in my heart because he's offered the cup of tea and he's made it. And so he's giving me
yeah,
something. And they're small things, right?
yeah,
But even drinking the tea, it's when I think about it, it's quite a zenful thing to do. It's sharing and caring. It's not big and a big grandiose gesture.
yeah,
And it's just sort of, and then we've found our rhythm. He doesn't like going to the supermarket, whereas I'm fine with that because, it's a bit of sense of connection and with others as I'm shopping and I'm gathering the food and I'm thinking, what will I make with this food?
yeah,
And then I'll create dinner, and we'll enjoy a lovely dinner. We might watch a crime series. This is where we're at the moment, a British crime series, and then he'll offer me another cup of tea. And then maybe after the crime series is finished, he will do the dishes, and I'll go to bed
Oh,
and read my book.
nice.
And it sounds very like an old married couple, doesn't it? But
Yeah.
it's very settled and lovely, and we get there's lots of
Mm.
joy. The joy, like he doesn't have to go shopping. I do the
Yes.
shopping, I do the cooking, he does the dishes, he makes the tea, and we eat our dinner together and we watch the crime series. So that's an example of
Mm.
a lovely scenario.
The
But
simple things in life. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And then when we were going through a bit of a time, maybe a year ago, when things were a bit out of whack, we had a bit of an audit, let's say. It wasn't like, let's
Mm.
do an audit, but it just naturally came about where I went into, got my A3 pad and my colored pencils, and what do you like about me? And what do I like about you? And we
Yeah.
sort of brainstormed that together. And obviously that's something that he doesn't like to do any of that stuff, but we needed to do that at the time for our relationship to move forward. And by doing that, I could hear him say, because he's not very forthcoming with all the wonderful things about me, sometimes I have to ask. I know that's just my ego. I'm like, feed me with how wonderful I am. That, yes, when I need to do that for myself, I know that. But I needed to hear it. So when we went through that, I learned that, well, yeah, it's not just making cups of tea and watching, you know, streaming services. It's we like going to art galleries together,
Mm.
and we like going to see live music that we both kind of get some joy out of, and he takes photographs, which is great because I don't want to sit there and talk with someone while I'm watching live music. I just want to tune into the music. And then he likes to do
Yeah.
things with his hands and be creative. So he's taking photos, and everyone wins there because then he's editing the photos. He puts them on Facebook, or he might share them with a performer. And so they
Mm.
get something out of it as well. So there's all that creativity. And that, again, we're doing that, we're sharing that experience as well, not just at the venue, but also afterwards with the editing, and his sharing on the socials and feeling good about his creation of photography. Um, yeah, so
Yeah.
it's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. I like what you said about getting out doing a little audit. We do a little process called radar, and that's so you review it. You can choose any time frame that you like. We do it once a month, and so you review the month, and then um, you sort of get aware of of some of the issues that you may have come up, or some highlights too, some really beautiful moments as well. And then you discuss that, and then you talk about an action that you'd like to take, and then you have a reward. So that can be, you might go to a movie, or you might have some, central time, or, anything like that, or, cook a dinner for each other or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
And I
like
think
that.
it's nice to do that, to constantly be thinking, like, as a couple, what can we bring to this? What can we be more aware of? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It is that awareness, because you can get into,
A rut of just doing the
yeah,
day-to-day grind.
yeah, exactly. And it's and then it gets to a point. Well, I know that I am, when I'm too much in my head and I'm overthinking
Yeah.
of about, you know, things aren't quite right. I'm getting a bit annoyed, but it's going around and around in my head. And then
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta
it,
bring it into your heart, don't you?
yeah. But the other thing is, sometimes my getting it out, I don't bring it into I don't, I bring it out and I put it onto him. I go, ah. But what's really interesting, because then I feel a bit yuck that I've shared,
Yeah.
oh, I'm a bit annoyed about this. But then again, at the same time, I feel like, well, there's a vulnerability in that, and then also trust that he's okay to hear the words of where I'm
Yeah.
at with a certain situation. And but what I find that when that happens, our relationship resets a little bit,
Yeah.
and then and then it might be like, and then all of a sudden it's like we both pull our socks up, and then we sort of hit this high of, not a high, but it goes up, and then we might have a bit more intimacy. We might have a
Yeah.
drink, or yeah, it actually raises that, oh, that I know that we're going about doing our own thing, but let's turn and put a bit more focus and energy onto each other for now, even though it's come from a bit of a, because I've gone, nee, nee, nee.
Yeah. Yeah. It can, yeah, clean the air, and then you sort of feel like you can start it again, with a clean slate.
It does.
Mm.
It does. And I think that, yeah, because it happens, and it happened
Oh, we
just,
do. We experience all the different emotions, and we can't reject them. Yeah.
no,
We have to
exactly. Well,
embrace them.
yeah, because then it builds up, and then resentment and all the other negative stuff, and it's not healthy. So I know that by speaking up is good, and because it happened the other day, and then I followed up because then he left to go about his day, and I had to get into my work and do my day, and then after about an hour or two, I sent a loving text with loving words. Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but and
Nice.
I got a positive response, and
Yeah.
it's
It's
been
lovely.
lovely. Yeah, yeah. So that's part of our pattern, is that when things, go off track, we can bring them on track. And I reflect and go, oh, is there a better way I could have done that? But at the end of the day, I'm just me, and it
No.
wasn't a harsh way. I was still just voicing concerns. I was like, oh, I could have done that more softly by saying it this way, or hint. It's like, well, because I
Yeah,
didn't
you have to
yell.
be a bit kind to yourself, because I think we can beat ourselves up about that sort of stuff too much, can't you?
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah, definitely, definitely. And and he knows me well enough. It's like, well, that's how you
Yeah.
talk, Jen, or that's how you have, you know, I haven't shamed him. I've just talked about a topic that's irritating me that includes him. So
Yes.
yeah, we're all adults, and we can all deal with it. And he's great with dealing with that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, in his way as well. So it might be throughout the day for him, he'll be going about his day, but he might reflect on things there. And then later on, he made a bit of a joke about it, not a sarcastic joke, or I think it was a
Yeah.
very loving joke.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh well, I can't be saying yes to that because I've got this on my list that's very urgent. I don't know. There's no context there, but you know what I mean. It's sort of
Yeah. Yeah. I do.
it was making
A
loving fun.
light of it, making light
Yeah,
of it.
yeah, yeah, but
Yeah.
loving
And
light.
and
Yeah.
also, like, if you know a bit about psychology, it's just projection anyway. It's usually what's going on with ourselves that we project onto them and blame them for. And it's okay to have that kind of expression, but also be aware that it's a part of ourselves that we're rejecting, that we find irritating about them or whatever.
Mm, mm.
Yeah. So it's
I'm
all
hearing you.
it's all inclusive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and we're all human doing our
Yes.
best.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I went on a retreat in Bali in
Oh,
May.
yes. Tell us about that. I was
Oh,
listening to some of your shows, yeah, about that. There was a little process that you did.
the gratitude process. So Rich Moffat, who is our program manager at Main FM, but he also does Eastern practices like Tai Chi and yoga, as well as Shiatsu, and he, with his family, does a thing in the evening called Wow Pow Chow.
That's the
And
one, yes.
yeah, so wow is something that you're grateful for that day, or
Mhm.
something amazing that happened, or something great that you highlight that you'd like to share. Pow is something that you want to work on from that day. And chow is something that you enjoyed eating that day.
Oh, yeah.
So put
Nice.
some fun to it. Then there was
Yes, I like
another
that.
You like that? Because there was
Hmm.
another one called rose thorn banana, which is
That's, yeah, the other one.
yeah. And that was someone else on the retreat who, with her young family, did every night. And yeah, the rose, something wonderful, the thorn, something they're working on, or something that was like something bad happened today that
Oh, yes.
they'd like to share. Um, and maybe work through with the family. I thought that was a nice thing. And banana, something silly that happened that day.
Ah, that's what I missed hearing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah. My son and I have a bit of a ongoing joke about bananas because we both like eating bananas, and so when he went overseas, he took all these photos of bananas in different countries. And then it was a theme, so then I started sending him banana photos. Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, I can see the silly side of bananas.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And they're one of my favorite. Oh, it's probably my favorite fruit is a banana.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. They're a good snack, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Potassium.
So Bali
Yes.
retreat. Yeah. So a week in Bali, or I was 2 weeks in Bali, and just and that was also to celebrate getting well after
Mhm.
my illness last year, and but not with a big focus on that. It was just more like, well, look at me. Like it was a reward to myself, part of this shared experience, and then just being open to whatever happened in the retreat as well. And just it was just magical. It was a
Mm.
real immersion, and it was led very gently with a daily routine of three activities in the day. There was yoga at 7, and there was 11 o'clock was Zen wisdom learnings and some chanting and maybe a bit of movement and meditation or sharing with the group. And then at 5 o'clock was a bit more of a movement practice as well, and maybe learning a technique around, self massage or massaging, shiatsu massage with others. Or it was different every day. So, and then the beautiful healthy food and
Yeah.
the climate and the landscape and surrounds, and just going for walks and noble silence. So not talking before 11 every day as well. So you're just with yourself, your own thoughts and body sensations up until 11. So that was really lovely as well, because I don't really like talking all the time. I like connection, but I don't have
Mm.
to have conversations with people all the time.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's so beautiful.
I mean, I can sit down and read a book on Zen, but it's not the same when you're sort of learning through experience and discussion every day for a week. I mean, gosh, I could do
Yeah.
that longer. I could do a 2 week retreat easily, I think.
Mm.
There was never
Mm.
a time where I thought, oh, when is this going to end?
Yeah. When is all this goodness going to end?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. I'm so glad that you've been able to come to that point in your life where you're feeling very, balanced and
Mm,
yeah, and settled in your relationship too.
yeah. And even in my friendships as
Mm.
well, just s sitting with where I'm at with how I relate to others and yeah, not overthinking things, but just sort of, yeah, day by day experiences, I think. And that's part of Zen, where we don't have to dwell too much in the past or the future.
Mm.
It's just where we are right now. But also having some things that are constant, sort of like, keeping hydrated and eating healthy
Yes.
food and moving and
Mm.
all those self-care practices, really, so that we can have all these other wonderful experiences that come and go.
Yeah.
Mm.
Fantastic.
Mm.
Yes. Well, that's a really beautiful note, I think, to end on. Thank you
Yeah,
so much for coming today. It's been wonderful chatting to you,
yeah,
Jen.
likewise,
Hmm.
likewise.